and ending up over the cliff. We can protect people when they go over a bridge from not ending up in the water. And so this system was designed to keep cars from straying into dangerous and off-limit areas. Most of the places that you're going to see these are high-risk areas. Bridges, curves, when there's oncoming traffic going in very fast, the opposite direction, there's something usually dividing you. Now, there's a lot of times that they're not because there's just not enough room, but those are the kind of places, medians and curves. Guardrails are not in the most dangerous area. There's usually a little bit of room over here, the gray area, a little bit of area that you probably could be in. Guardrails are placed in the safety zone. They're actually placed at a place where you could probably drive, that you could probably do something. Guardrails are designed to direct and to protect. That's what their purpose is, to direct you, keep you off of that, and to protect you. Guardrails say, just beyond me, there's danger. Just beyond me, there's someplace you don't want to take your car, your motorcycle, your vehicle, whatever you're on. Stay away. No one argues, I don't think, and there might be one, there's always one, but most people wouldn't argue that guardrails serve a great purpose. You hit a guardrail, it will cause damage to your vehicle. But it probably won't cause as much damage as if you did what was on the other side of the guardrail. Danger. There's a danger zone. In driving, we understand the need for margin, for mistake. We understand that on that curve, if it's a beautiful day in the hills and all of a sudden it starts snowing and the road gets slick and you're not paying attention, you know, I might need a guardrail. I might need something. Again, guardrails are located. They're in the safety zone. The theory behind it is you'll do a little damage, but not as much if the guardrail wasn't there. It's better to have a little damage rather than a lot of damage. Guardrails in life are also needed. Guardrails in life. Last week we talked about people. I asked the question, how many have met somebody you wish you never would have met? Not that you're a bad person or you just, but because of that relationship, maybe you got sucked in and you made some decisions or choices that impacted your life more than just for that moment. But if you would have had a guardrail, maybe that would not have happened. For most of us, the greatest regret financially, professionally, personally, could have been avoided and hopefully will be avoided if you have guardrails. Today, I want to take a look at an area that if we have guardrails, if we put guardrails in this area, it literally could change the world that we live in. If we as a people would have guardrails in this area, it would change our country. It would change our state. It would change families. It would change your life. It would change the number of unwanted pregnancies that happen in our world. It would change the number of kids born out of wedlock if we had guardrails. And we're going to be talking about sexuality, moral issues. We might even get into friends with benefits. What? It's okay if you don't know it. You probably might not need a guardrail then. But you know what? It happens. There's things in our life that we need to have guardrails. Financially, things can happen in your life and you can recover. It could take a lot of work, but most people can have something financially happen and you recover and you can help other people. You can talk about it and be very transparent about what happened in your life. Academically, you can have a horrible semester or career at school. and recover from that. Gordon Anderson, I talk about him often, president of North Central University, now retired from North Central. Didn't graduate, but his grade point average in high school was a 0. You have to work hard to get a 0. I mean, really, you got to work hard. Who eventually went on and got his doctorate, graduated from college and from his doctoral program with honors and a degree. His teachers and advisors at school said, you will never amount to anything. You can recover. Sexually, moral decisions that we make sometimes can be a little harder to bounce back from. What they can do to marriages. I would like to say that every couple that Lori and I have counseled who have had infidelity in their marriages have been forgiven of God. That's true. But been able to rebuild their marriage, that is not true. The number is way higher on the not so much making it side. The trust that's been violated, the shame that's been built into the individual who does it. The enemy loves us to take his bait, but then when he does it, shames us and condemns us and beats us and flogs us with those kind of things. Sexual sins and infidelity is not about physical connection only. That's a part of it. Excuse me. But there's so much more. There's these memory things that people have to deal with because of choices that they've made. The guilt that just sets in. The fantasies that seem to just be self-starting and come into our mind and our hearts. We deal with stuff today that generations before. When I look back to high school, we didn't know what a text message was. We thought a text message was a note mom left on the table probably. We had no idea. Email, how that would impact our world, and sexuality and temptation, the internet, what that opened up, amazing things, but also a lot of garbage that we need to have guardrails. And your guardrails are going to be different than my guardrails. That's what's amazing about this. This is personal. A personal system. I think I must have brushed by that. Anyway, it's a personal system that you come up with to protect yourself. That when you bump up against the guardrail, that this guardrail isn't sin, but it lights up your conscience and goes, just beyond here there's danger, and I don't even want to play with what's on the other side of this. If you're married, guardrails will keep your relationship with your husband or wife healthy and strong. And they'll let your spouse, your husband, your wife know that I love you enough that I don't want to do anything to ever hurt our relationship, to allow anything to come in contact with our relationship. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians 6:18. I love how Scripture talks about stuff. We're going to look at a verse later on that says, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out. Now, God doesn't want us to gouge our eyes out. He's just saying, this is so important, and your eyes are a lot of the problem, what you look at. Be extreme in your guardrails in the area of what you look at. In the area of sexual immorality, it says, flee from sexual immorality. It doesn't say casually walk away from it. It doesn't say just kind of avoid it whenever you can. It says flee from sexual immorality. Not be careful. That's not a guardrail. That's a yellow line. It doesn't say don't flirt with it. That's a white dotted line. If that's what, I'm not going to flirt with it. I don't even know what flirting is. I really wasn't flirting, but you get too close at those times, and things can happen that we just don't want. Unfortunately, in our individuals, there's a lot of things that we go like, oh boy, I know somebody that needs this. But you know what? I got a handle on this. I'm not tempted in that area. I can do things that other people can't do. I'm here to tell you that's the lie of pornography. That's the lie of walking up to the line. That's the lie of getting too close. That's the line of someone saying, oh, I can mess with drugs. I know people that can't, but I'm just a little bit smarter than other people. I can keep a control on this. And somehow in our brain, we all think we're that person. But we think other people, well, they really need this. I wish they were here. And again, like last week, please listen to this through your vantage point. If you're married, I guarantee, wives, you want your husbands to flee from sexual immorality. You buy them running shoes. You'll get them in shape. I mean, yeah, husbands, you want your wives to flee. You don't want them to say, hey, just see how close you can get to temptation. As long as you just say no at the right moment. You don't even want that flirtation, that mental stuff going on in your spouse. If you're a brother, you want your little sister to flee from sexual immorality. You want your friends to flee. If you're a parent, I guarantee you want your kiddos to stay as far away from this as they can. Most of us, because, we remember some of the choices that we make that still mess with our brain, that still mess with our thought, that still mess with our feelings of self-worth. Some things that you did, some things that were done to you, some of the things that maybe were done to me growing up, if I would have had different guardrails, never would have put myself in that position. Never would have put myself in that environment to have it happen. Last week we looked at a verse. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but it's an amazing verse, and it's in Proverbs. And Solomon said this, walk with the wise and you will become wise. For the companion of fools will suffer harm. Some of the things that happened to you and me wasn't because we made choices, but because of who we hung out with. The shrapnel of their life impacted us, and we still walk away with the scars and the wounds. Our culture, our world has a tendency to bait us into being casual with our thoughts and our actions and our deeds when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to intimacy. They bait us. Have you ever been to the mall lately? I'm not telling you not to go to the mall. This is an illustration. There are things that are advertised as should be worn, and we don't need to mention stores, but things that used to only be undergarments are now outer garments. Things that people who worked on corners in New York and in LA went to war 50 years ago, now we buy for our teenage daughters. I put us all in it, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But our culture does. They bait us. 50 years ago, again, please don't go online and check me out. Trust me. I didn't check me out either. The cover of Playboy, the woman on the cover of Playboy 50 years ago was more covered than most women at checkout counters on magazines. Not X-rated, not pornography, just teasers, tempters. Our culture baits us. And I've had some friends that their whole thing was they go to checkout lines and they would take the front cover one and turn it around. You know, I'm not saying you need to do that, but if you find yourself walking through there and staring and staring, I would never pick that up, but I'll sure stare at it as long as I'm here. Maybe there's a guardrail somewhere in there for you. We're tempted, we're baited, but when teenagers get pregnant, we chastise them. When a friend has an affair, we're disgusted with him or her, with their choices, but yet our culture and everything about what we are about baits us We market to young girls, to teenage girls, with items that, again, 50 years ago, Grandma would have never let you out of the house dressed like that. Here's the truth. This is a tough statement. When I first read this and I first looked at it, I'm thinking like, I don't know if I can even say that, but it's become more and more true since the last time we taught on this till today. We all entertain ourselves with affairs. It's one of those that don't throw anything at me, but we all entertain ourselves with affairs. The TV shows that we watch, the movies that we watch, the books that some read, the magazines that are read, and the articles in there. When was the last time you watched a movie and you watched a happy marital couple having an intimate moment? You start rewatching movies, don't rewatch them, but you start thinking about them and you go like, oh, they weren't married. They were having an affair. This couple, they were married, but their spouses were so dysfunctional that you really rooted for the affair because it looked so much more love and tender. And so it almost gets us going like, I'm okay with the affair. I was talking with the prayer group, and it's little things that happen like that, even with violence. Liam Neeson movies, I like to watch them, but I have to watch myself because when he is hurting somebody, I can start cheering like, oh, don't kill him that fast. Make it hurt a little more. You know, movies have a tendency to help you to hate the villain, to say they deserve that. And now I got to look in the mirror and go, where in that is that lined up with the godly character list? Forgive, love, patience, kindness, suffering, kill them slower. It just doesn't seem to fit. Love, patience, forgiveness. That affair is okay because the relationship they're in is so dysfunctional. And yet we watch these movies, and it might not even be married people. It might just be people outside of wedlock, and we become okay with it. And here's the really sick part. And if you've never read The Vision by David Wilkerson, read it with this in mind. We pay money to have adultery brought into our household. When you think about the twistedness of this, we pay for cable. We pay for Netflix. We pay, and again, these are all great things. Just be selective. Have guardrails. Have guardrails. Here's a guardrail. Watch the movies with your dad. I remember the first movie. I said, Dad, this is a great movie. Let's watch it. Halfway through, I'm going like, why did I invite my dad to watch this movie with me? We watched What About Bob with our youth group one time. I forgot about the Tretz thing when he just went off swearing and doing his whole thing. And I just remembered baby steps to the elevator, you know? And I'm sailing. But watch it with your youth group and you go, okay, let's play a game. We allow and again, that's what I'm saying. We trick ourselves into thinking we don't need the guardrail in this area because it's not really impacting me. I would never do that. But we meditate on it. We think about it. This is another word for this. I choose to do communion. I choose to commune with God rather than commune with that TV show. Because that's what you're doing for an hour and a half. You're communing with that TV show. It's a one-way communication. It's only going in. Anyway, that was free. And again, I'm not saying stop watching movies. I'm saying be smart about what we do in those areas. We're baited. We're baited. We all entertain ourselves with affairs. We need guardrails. This is as far as I will go. If you're in a Christian and you're in a relationship, you need this even more than anything. Because the verse goes on to say that we were just looking at flee from any sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside of their body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. And this body's been bought with a price. It's no longer mine, but it's Christ who lives inside of me. And I don't understand all the ramifications of that, but it says it, and I believe it, that all these other sins are outside of the body, but this is inside. Some of that is because of the memory things that you can never get out of your mind about people that you've been intimate with, or things that you have done, or things that have been done to you. They impact you not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and again, probably on that neurological level again, that you just go, I need my mind to be transformed by the renewing. You need to renew me. Again, we're going to look at some guidelines, some things to just put in your life. And if my list is too much for you, I get it. If my list doesn't work for where you work, I get it. But take time to come up with some sort of guardrails that if you do have to do some of the things that I say this is a good guardrail, or I believe this is a good guardrail, or Lori and I have had as guardrails, but you go, I don't see how that works for where I work. You know, if you're a cab driver, you might have to pick up a gal sometime. Any cab drivers? Okay, we're free from that one. But, you know, there are things that you might have to do. I could see if you're a realtor, you might have some guy that's buying a house and you go, I don't know how to do this. I have to pay somebody else to come up, figure it out, have them. If they don't work for you, come up with something. Married people. First list that I'm going to give is for people who are in a marriage relationship right now. First thing is, talk with your spouse. Make sure your spouse and you know your list. Come up with a list together, because guys, I guarantee you, your wife will have a different list for you than you have. Wives, your husbands will probably have a different list. And maybe not, but they might see something that you have. I have blind spots. Lori has way better vision. Flip over. She might not have 20/20 in everything, but maybe God will use me to say, hey, have you ever thought of this? Talk it over. Work it out. Second one, after talking it over, and these are just, don't travel alone with members of the opposite sex. There are people who go on long trips, business trips with people of the opposite sex. They fly together, they rent cars together, they stay in the same motel together. I'm just telling you, for me, I probably couldn't have that job just because of the look and what that would be like. Don't travel alone with people of those sex. I won't even go out to eat with somebody. Now, I have met people at coffee shops where they drive, I drive. I get there early, so there's no question about it. So we're not walking in together. And we leave way separate, too. You go like, well, that just sounds... I'm just wanting to protect me, my wife, and you guys, my family, from accusations and anything like that. I don't even go out to eat with people of the opposite sex without Lori. I told you about a friend that I dated that called and said, hey, can we go out to lunch? And I just said, Lori and I would love to eat with you. 3 times, and then we ate together. And she's never asked me to eat lunch again with her. And that's okay with me. And so don't do that. How about this one? If you have the ability if you're the boss and you hire, don't hire cute members of the opposite sex to help them. I think I just need to, you know what, they're just struggling. I think I'm just going to hire her to be my personal assistant, my secretary, do some extra work. I just think, don't do that. Don't play with that. I would say if you are going to hire people of the opposite sex, if I'm going to do that, when we get to the point where we would have a receptionist or a personal assistant, Lori will hire that person with me. Lori will be as much in that person's life as I'm in their life. I love the fact that, I don't love the fact that Mark is looking at a job somewhere else, but I love the fact that the person that he's dealing with is calling his wife to connect with her. And this is a lady who owns a business, and I'm just going like, that's smart, that's good, that's healthy, that's longevity that can happen in that area. Don't confide in or counsel people of the opposite sex. Just don't do it. And if you do, I mean, as a pastor, this happens, but when I do it, there's always somebody else in the building. My door is always open. That person is always invited to walk by the door and be a part of it from There's private stuff going on. But when stuff starts happening, when these kind of things start happening, no one understands me like you do. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Something should go off. You're over here. Somehow you allowed yourself. Oh, nobody gets me like you get me. I call this like the secretary syndrome. I don't even know if this is a real syndrome, but I'm going to try to get it named and get credit for it. But it's a syndrome that you go home after a long day's work and your wife goes like, you know what, the yard still isn't mowed. And the dishwasher still doesn't work. And the da-da-da-da, and the da-da, and the blah-blah-blah-da, and you just had a hard day, you're tired, you just want to veg, watch a TV show that you shouldn't watch, do something, and then you go to work the next day, and there's this person standing there, and all they do is go, here's your mail, sir, Mr. Gross or Joel, and here's your coffee. Anything else I could do for you? Then you get home, and it's like, hey, the yard still isn't mowed. Did you take care of this? Did you take care of that? The life stuff that happens. And then you go to work the next day, and it says, here's your coffee. And when you see them, you never see them with bed hair. And they never have morning breath. Their makeup's always on. They're right there. And it becomes this fantasy that you go like, I like going to work. And if that's happening, that's a guardrail. You need a guardrail. You need something in your life to stop you. When you feel your heart or your desires drifting towards a specific person. And that could be that secretary syndrome kind of thing. When you start finding that even the pre-daydream, the pre-fantasy stuff, tell somebody about it. Hopefully you can tell your wife about it. Because if you tell your wife, I'm telling you, nobody will pray for you as hard as your wife. If you go, you might have to deal with some other stuff, but nobody's going to pray. Wives, nobody's going to pray harder than your husband. But sometimes that can be difficult. Have somebody who has the same kind of guardrails so they can go, I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to stand with you. I'm going to be popping in at your work more often. I'm going to be doing this. Does that make sense? When your mind starts drifting and you go, what does that even mean? If you find yourself at work walking by their cubicle often, put a guardrail right in front of their desk. I tell you, when I started, we weren't even dating, but I knew Lori's schedule at North Central. I was a stalker. No, in a small S way. You knew that she'd be coming down that hallway, and I wouldn't even talk to her, but I just thought, well, maybe this will be the day that a conversation will go beyond, hi. And it did. But it was years later. But I just because I was curious, and so if that starts happening with somebody that's not your spouse, and you're in that relationship, that should be something going, that person's schedule, there's something wrong. Your heart is being drawn. You need to have a conversation with somebody. And again, that brings back, talk about it. Talk about it. I would rather feel guilty about something that never happened or the discomfort of me and Lori having to talk about something than talking about it after I'm over here laying at the side of the road and the EMTs are coming to get me. Emotionally, mentally, intimately. I don't want that. Single list. We looked at this verse earlier. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. So the first rule, if you're single, is just gouge your eyes out to begin with. Just get it over with and take care of it. Really all that's saying is get some guardrails. You need them as much as we do as married couples. So I would say that if you're dealing with married people, use the married list as your guideline to start with. Don't go have meals with people of the opposite sex that are married. You're going to go out with girls and guys, and that's how this whole thing happens. Which leads me to the next one. Don't have sleepovers. I mean, this is just, we just sat, watched a movie and fell asleep. We just, and I tell you, it happens. If you're at college, I can remember times we had all kinds of people over and everybody just fell asleep and it's all right if you do that if you have one of these between whoever you're sitting with, I guess. I don't know. But just don't do sleepovers. And another thing is, if dating for you, and hopefully I'm speaking to a crowd here, but maybe this is you. If dating equals sex for you, stop dating for a year and get your heart and your emotion and your attitude right. There are a lot of people that when you say you're dating, they just expect that there's going to be intimacy involved in that. Hopefully it's not in the church, but I'm here to tell you it is in the church. We haven't done a very good job of training up our kids to just say no. We've gave them dotted lines. Wait till you're ready. Remember we talked about that? Girls might understand what that means. Boys were saying, I'm born, I'm ready. We were born in drive. 4-wheel drive, maybe overdrive. So that just doesn't work. But take a relationship break. So it's really, just avoid that. 5 years from now, I don't believe anybody that's married 5 years from now, they were single, they were dating, is going to say, boy, I wish I would have had more sleepovers with people of the opposite sex. Not if their heart is really attached to their spouse like they're supposed to be. I wish I had more people that I don't want to run into in Rapid City. I wish there were more stories I don't want my wife to hear about or my kids to ever hear about. And guardrails will allow you to be able to talk about and share with and be a part of everything. When your spouse believes that you are the only one and that they are the only one, your relationship with each other, it will be better. Those little mental things that people, are they being faithful? Are they really there? Did they really go there when they said that? The enemy loves those kind of things in here and in our heart. Worship team, come on up. We're just going to end with a song. You know what? It's okay. Just relax. We'll just close. I love this Proverbs, and I think this goes along with where we're at. And this is one that college, I think God just really laid on my heart. It was Proverbs 7:6. At the window of my house, I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young man, a youth who had no sense. He wasn't wise. He wasn't walking with the wise. Because if he was, he would be wise. Proverbs says, hang out with wise people and you'll become wise just by being in their proximity. It just happens. It rubs off on you. But he was foolish. He was the one who, if you hang out with fools, you're going to suffer harm. And he was foolish. He was not wise. He had no sense. He was going down the street near her corner. This is me and Lori. I was this foolish, it wasn't anything wrong with it, but I was just putting myself going like, I wonder if I'll see her today down the hallway. I wonder if this will happen. But he was doing it, and it was in a non-smart way. He walked along in the direction of her house at twilight as the day was fading, as the day it was settling into night. Then out came the woman to meet him, dressed as a prostitute. And with crafty intent, she enticed him and took him to her house. At some point in time, if that simple guy would have had guardrails and say, there's danger down that street. There's danger for me, for my future relationships. As we close, I just want everybody to close their eyes and and I know I say this sometimes and some people, crack an eye open, but this is so important that I believe that God said early today and during worship, it even hit me again, that sexual sins and that have been done to you or you have done or been intimate with somebody is a sin against your own body. All others are outside of your body. Some of you, and it's not saying that there's not forgiveness. There's forgiveness for anything you do. God forgives when you say, can I be forgiven? But maybe you are haunted with memories, with thoughts, with imagery, with guilt, with, I'm just so disgusted with myself. God, I believe, though, I know God can transform our minds, can take guilt and have it be guilt no more. He wants you to have guardrails in the place of that guilt, probably, but it can happen. But so you're here today, eyes are closed, and you're going like, Joel, I deal with what happened to me as a kid with maybe an uncle or a grandpa or an adult, and I still handle that because it's kind of like that's been done to me. I deal with that, the guilt. Maybe it was a relationship, an affair, and you're married or you're single or whatever, and you can't help it. Your mind just goes there, and you go like, you know what? I just need freedom from this. I'm going to ask you to do something. Eyes are closed. Just raise your hand real quick. I just want to pray with you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? You're not alone. There really was a hand for every thank you. We don't just stand up here and go, yep. Anybody else? You want freedom. You want to have a guilt-free life. You want to have bad memories removed. Father, I just pray your healing, your power, your strength, your spirit. Lord, just like we can recover from bad choices financially or bad choices with academic stuff, Lord, help these bad choices that are in the past to stay there. And Lord, bring a new life, bring a new day, bring a new freedom, bring a new power. Lord, heal relationships that maybe they play with a little bit. They interact with how we deal with life a little bit. Lord, I pray it, and I thank you that you're the God that out of nothing makes something, and you're the God that can take the bad that the enemy meant to destroy us with and turn it into good. I pray it in Jesus' name. And everybody that loves their mother said amen. If the person didn't say amen next to you, ask them about it. No. Have a great day, guys. Love ya.